Why does a conflict over a small piece of land captivate the world for over a century? Today, we'll uncover the historical, political, and cultural roots of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Why this issue remains unresolved and deeply contentious today. The land of Israel-Palestine is important to Jews, Christians, and Muslims because it holds deep religious and historical meaning for all three. For Christians, it is the place where Jesus Christ was born, lived, preached, and was crucified, making it central to their faith. For Muslims, it is home to Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, the third holiest site in Islam, and is believed to be the place from which Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven during the night journey. This shared spiritual connection makes the land deeply significant, but also a source of tension. Ottoman and pre-Mingdad era under Ottoman rule. Life was largely rural, with most people living in villages and working as farmers. The population was diverse, including Muslim Arabs, who made up the majority, as well as Christian Arabs, Jews, and smaller groups like Samaritans. Communities generally lived side by side, though they were often organized by religion. Land ownership followed a feudal system, with large areas owned by wealthy landlords, some of whom didn't live in the region, while peasants worked the land. The Ottomans also collected taxes on land and agriculture, which could be burdensome for farmers. Despite some tensions, the different groups coexisted relatively peacefully compared to later periods of conflict. The Zionist movement and early Jewish immigration in the late 19th century. Zionism emerged as a political movement among Jewish communities in Europe. It was a response to widespread anti-Semitism, including violent pogroms in Eastern Europe and discrimination across the continent. Zionists believed that Jews needed a homeland where they could live safely and independently, and many saw Palestine, their ancestral land, as the ideal location. Early Jewish immigration to Palestine began during this time, with settlers purchasing land and establishing agricultural communities. This migration brought economic development and modern farming techniques, but also created tensions with the local Arab population, who feared losing their land and cultural identity. These early settlements laid the foundation for the later establishment of the State of Israel, but also contributed to the roots of the Israel-Palestine conflict. The Balfour Declaration, issued by the British government in 1917, was a key moment in the history of the Israel-Palestine conflict. In this declaration, Britain promised to support the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, which was under British control at the time. This promise was made without consulting the Arab population, who had been living in the region for centuries and saw the declaration as a betrayal. As a result, there was growing resistance among Arabs, who feared that the influx of Jewish immigrants would lead to the loss of their land and political rights. Tensions between the Jewish and Arab communities increased, with both sides feeling threatened by the other's presence and ambitions. This period marked the beginning of a long history of conflict, as the promises made by the Balfour Declaration were seen very differently by Jews and Arabs, and both groups fought to secure their future in the land partition plan and war. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan to resolve the growing tensions between Jews and Arabs in Palestine. The plan suggested dividing the land into two states, one for the Jewish people and one for the Arabs, with Jerusalem as an international city. The Jews accepted the plan, but the Arab leaders rejected it, believing it was unfair and violated the rights of the Palestinian Arab population. In May 1948, when the British withdrew, the Jewish leadership declared the establishment of the State of Israel. This led to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, as neighboring Arab states invaded to prevent the creation of Israel. The war ended in 1949 with an Israeli victory, and the borders of Israel were expanded beyond those outlined in the UN partition plan. For Palestinians, this war is known as the Nakba, or catastrophe, as it resulted in the displacement of over 700,000 Palestinian Arabs, many of whom fled or were forced out of their homes, becoming refugees. The creation of Israel and the subsequent refugee crisis became central issues in the ongoing Israel. The borders of Israel have been a major point of contention since its establishment in 1948. While Israel's internationally recognized borders were defined after the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, the boundaries have shifted over time, especially after the Six-Day War in 1967, when Israel captured the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. The Israeli government has since built settlements in these occupied territories, which are considered illegal under international law, though Israel disputes this. These settlements are a key source of tension, as they further complicate any potential solution to the conflict, with Palestinians seeking the West Bank and East Jerusalem as the capital of a future Palestinian state. Jerusalem itself is particularly contentious because it holds religious significance for Jews, Muslims, and Christians. Israel considers the entire city its capital, while Palestinians claim East Jerusalem as the capital of their future state. The status of Jerusalem remains one of the most difficult and sensitive issues in peace negotiations, as both sides view it as a central part of their identity and future. The plight of Palestinian refugees is a central issue in the Israel-Palestine conflict. Following the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, over 700,000 Palestinians were displaced from their homes, becoming refugees in neighboring countries or in camps within the region. The right of return is the demand by Palestinians for these refugees and their descendants to return to their original homes in what is now Israel. This issue remains unresolved, as Israel fears that granting this right would alter the demographic balance and threaten its Jewish identity. For Palestinians, the right of return is seen as a fundamental aspect of justice and their national identity, while for Israel, it represents a serious security and political challenge. Jerusalem is a focal point of tension in the Israel-Palestine conflict, due to its religious significance to Jews, Muslims, and Christians. For Jews, it is the site of the Western Wall, the holiest place in their faith. For Muslims, it is home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam, located in East Jerusalem. Christians also revere the city as the place where Jesus was crucified and resurrected. The overlapping religious claims to Jerusalem, particularly over control of the Old City and its sacred sites, have led to frequent conflicts. While Israel claims Jerusalem as its undivided capital, Palestinians view East Jerusalem as the capital of their future state, making it a key point of dispute in any peace negotiations. Global powers have played a significant role in shaping the Israel-Palestine conflict, often using the region as a strategic pawn in broader geopolitical struggles. The United States has been a strong ally of Israel, providing military, economic, and diplomatic support, while also attempting to mediate peace talks. The Soviet Union, during the Cold War, supported Arab states and the Palestinian cause, offering military aid to countries like Egypt and Syria. Arab states, including Egypt, Jordan, and Iraq, have been involved in multiple wars against Israel. The Israel-Palestine conflict stems from a combination of historical, territorial, and religious factors. The roots can be traced back to competing nationalism, Zionism, the movement for a Jewish homeland, and Palestinian nationalism seeking self-determination. The 1948 creation of Israel and the subsequent displacement of Palestinians, the Nakba, intensified tensions. Disputed borders, particularly over the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem, remain central to the conflict. Jerusalem's religious significance to Jews, Muslims, and Christians adds another layer of complexity, as both Israelis and Palestinians claim it as their capital. The ongoing refugee issue, particularly the right of return for Palestinian refugees, further fuels tensions. International involvement, with global powers supporting different sides, has often complicated peace efforts. At its core, the conflict is about identity, land, and the right to self-determination, with both peoples deeply connected to the land, but struggling to coexist peacefully. Can peace ever be achieved, or will history continue to repeat itself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.